you very much to Basnas and also Mr. Elanga and Bisakti for inviting me to join in this conference. So I will discuss on the issues related to inclusive development. But to be precise, I would like to talk on the political priority in promoting zakat as inclusive development tools during COVID-19. So beside the topic that been suggested by the organizer, but the other reason why I want to discuss on this topic is one, because of the this COVID-19, we are looking for policy prescription, not only policy prescription, but also looking for the solution for the impact of COVID-19, and also looking at what have been done by the policymakers, especially the politicians, in relation to promoting zakat as inclusive. So I will highlight. My presentation will highlight on, I'm sure that you know about the inclusive development, where these words, inclusive development, also imply social, ecological, and also personal inclusiveness. And inclusive development has its root in different discipline approach, because different discipline, discipline come up with a different definition and also different approach in tackling the inclusive development. And inclusive development is used to counter exclusive capitalist approach. And the fourth one is inclusiveness refer to show to how access to and allocation of basic resources that can be organized. Okay? And development refer to ecological and social or economic well-being, which is currently we are looking at this term development to solve the problem of economic well-being. Okay? So I'm trying to discuss this first as introduction. The term inclusive development. This is to remind us that this term only emerged in the 21st century, and also then been adopted in series of scholarly and policy documents. If we look at many studies and also many publications and also policy documents, already include or incorporate inclusive development when they are talking about the development of a particular country. And also it can be traced to different concepts in different disciplines, as I mentioned earlier, because it depends on the contribution of all stakeholders. And also, if you can reach all, as discussed by Prof. Nitya, about the project that can reach all people, right? Especially the people in the rural area. So how can these inclusive development tools can reach the people that are not reached by the formal or mainstream? So some see inclusive development as only combining social aspect with economic growth, but they forgot about the political approach. So normally, when we talk about inclusive growth, we talk only about the social aspect. What is the social aspect of inclusive growth, and also combined with economic growth, but we forgot about the political approach in dealing with the inclusive development. Okay, so what is actually the political approach here, which I mentioned here as a political priorities? Okay. We define inclusive development instead of focusing on social well-being and protecting the ecosystem service on redefining political priorities. So in this paper or in this presentation, I would like to redefine political priorities. What are the political priorities that need to be redefined? So the political priorities that we define only cover on the policy that have been introduced by the government of the day. Okay, but whereas we have to look into other aspect political priority in terms of our constitutional rule or our rules. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to look at political priorities from the constitutional rule. Okay? So I look at the political priority that can be searched in our constitution. Based on a sample of 57 OIC countries and one non-OIC countries. This is purposely I took one non-OIC member countries because basically OIC countries majority of the people are Muslim, not only Muslim, but they also recognize Muslim Islam as the national religion. So based on that, I want to look at the in this study is because the political priority might be rooted from the our rules, our constitutional rule. Okay, so this is the basic. So the rules of the issues in dealing with, let's say, for example, the issue of in some countries they don't use the zakat or don't use the sadaqah or wakaf to overcome the problem or the impact of pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. But in other countries, they use that zakat, wakaf, and also the sadaqah as the tools to overcome or to solve the problem of the impact of pandemic 19. Okay, so by looking at a sample of 57 OIC country and one non-OIC, this is what I got. What the constitution says about the zakat and also other social finance instrument. Okay, from my studies, I got only 8 countries that recognize zakat, wakaf, or sadaqah in their constitution. And very unfortunate for Indonesia, for your Undang-Undang 1945, you don't mention about that. Okay. For example, in Brunei, let's we look at in Brunei. In Brunei, all revenues, Article 58, all revenues and money be paid into a consolidated fund. But in relation to zakat, Article 69 of the state constitution says that the provision shall not be applicable to Muslim revenues and fund. What does it mean? Meaning that they have a different fund. One is consolidated fund, which cover all revenue money. And the other one is another fund. They call it the Muslim revenue and funds. They put separately. And that is discussed together under the subject of finance, finance matter in the constitution. In Egypt, the state budget include all its revenue and expenditure without exception. This is discussed in the ruling system of the country in Egypt. And the state shall encourage the charitable endowment system, meaning that in Egypt, the state constitution recognizes the role of charitable endowment. Sorry for the internet interruption. Just to recap what have been already presented. So I just to remind myself and also the participant about the topic of my presentation is about the political priority in promoting zakat as inclusive development tools during COVID-19. So if I can recall my presentation before this, that during the COVID or the effect of the COVID-19 crisis, we are looking for the policy prescription and also we are looking for policy response. So in this case, we are looking at the policy response from the zakat as a policy prescription that can overcome the issues of the inclusive development. So this is the area that I'm trying to explain that in this paper. So my issue, I think, already been touched by Brother Lawal on this definition or the concept of inclusive development. But just to recap what have been discussed, what have been presented before this, one of the ecosystem for inclusive development is the legal rules or constitutional rules. In this perspective, from there, how can we define that? Because the rules are actually come up from the what have been discussed or they've been presented in the parliament or in the assembly to come up with the rules. So then it becomes the priority of the politician to tackle the issues. Okay, So as I have been discussed before this, that I use a sample of several countries in several member country of OICs, and we found out that all the 8 countries of OIC recognize that zakat as the tools, okay, as the tool for development intervention. Okay, it happened in Brunei, it happened in Egypt, it happened in Gambia, and also it happened in Jordan, Libya, and one of non-OIC member countries, that is Singapore, and others like Malaysia, Pakistan, and Yemen. Okay, so if we look from this constitutional rules, okay, we can conclude several conclusion from this constitution. Okay, one is, if you look at the constitution, says that yes, this has been practiced by many countries. The government revenues, we have a standard list of government revenues. What are the standard list of government revenues? The government revenues come from tax. Government revenue can come from non-tax, and the government revenue also non-revenue received. Okay, that many countries use this, which is based on the capitalist system. That's why in the earlier discussion I mentioned that how can we use this? This suggestion to use the zakat as intervention policy, that we can move away from the capitalist system. Okay, and another one is what are our finding? Main finding is government revenues. Government can use tax, government non-tax, and revenues. If the government don't have that enough revenue, this is what they currently been practiced by many countries when they have this fiscal stimulus to overcome the issues of pandemic crisis. So they borrow. This is one option. They issue sukuk, they issue bond to support, or as a tools to support or to overcome the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, but as have been discussed in our table or in several sample of several OIC member countries, the revenue can also come from the resources. From, they call it the Muslim Fund or Islamic religious revenues. Okay, we have zakat, we have sadaqah, we have the waqaf. So these three main elements or these three main instruments can be used as the as expenditure of the government. So beside the tax, non-tax, and non-revenue tax, so now the government can rely on these sources of revenue that can be used to overcome the impact of pandemic 19. Okay, COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so this is what we can look at from this. But what about the countries, those countries who don't have this provision or these rules in their constitution? So for me, this is the issues of the priority. If we have this rule in our constitution, mean that we have to work on that. I mean, we can use that tools as our policy prescription. But if we don't have that rules in our constitution, meaning that forget about it. It is not stated in the constitution. So meaning that I cannot use that, or maybe you can use that voluntarily. It's not a compulsory. So in this country, you see that it is a compulsory to use that because they are the sources of government revenues. Okay, so this is how we can, the policy makers in Muslim country can use this zakat, waqaf, and also sadaqah to overcome the impact of COVID-19. So now the final one is, this is my final slide, Dr. Nora, that if now we are looking at the new approach, what is our new approach? Our new approach is to combine is tax and also non-tax. Here I refer to zakat and also waqaf and sadaqah. They can be used as a new approach to overcome the problem of or the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. You can use that. So meaning that we include that, before we don't include that instrument in our policy provision. Now we can include that as a policy prescription of those countries. So for me, is the basic premise here is we have a constitutional rules related to this instrument where we can overcome the issues of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. This is very important. So maybe this is become the priority of the policymakers in that country to use that instrument to overcome the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, thank you very much, Dr. Nora.